Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Headland, questions about the town and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, Ask the Mayor with Bob Headland.
Hey, welcome back to a special edition of Ask the Mayor. I'm your foreman and citizen advocate, Jim Melody. And as always, I'm joined with the mayor of the great town of Weymouth, Mayor Robert Headland. How are you today, Mr. Mayor?
I didn't get foreman, but I guess I got it now. It has to do with the helmet, the hard hat.
Well, Bob, you may be wondering why I'm, in fact, wearing this construction helmet. It's because this episode is construction focused. There's so much development going on in town. I thought I should be prepared. They could start building something in your office before we stop rolling cameras.
Judging from the logo on that hat, you might be jinxed today, so be careful.
Well, before I take off the hat, we do have a special insertion that we would like to ask everybody.
Let me
to get
just
involved
thank.
with. Yeah, please do.
We have a new mascot. We like to have a little. What's good about this is if we do a different mascot every show, then you know it's a new episode.
Excellent.
Because sometimes
Excellent.
when we tape, we have the same outfit on sometimes.
And I got to be honest with you, Bob, I don't think it looks that much like you.
It's not.
Oh, jeez.
I assume you know who it is, right? Do you know who it is?
I'm only looking for the back, but it looks like a Kennedy to me.
So we want to thank the Chief of Staff, Ted Langill, for loaning that to us for the show. It's a bust that's in his office.
Any history to that in particular?
Actually, he just recently got it. He's a fan of JFK. I don't know the history of where he got it.
Excellent. Well, that shoe always fits here in the Massachusetts scene.
Thought you sculpted this. I can envision. What was that movie? Ghost with
Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze. Who was the woman that was doing the
Demi Moore.
That was Demi Moore?
Actually, Ted and I
young Demi Moore.
Ted and I made this at the Potter's Wheel. Ted sat behind me as we both crafted this when it was spinning around.
Right.
In fact, of course, the guy who plays the murderer in that scene, Rick Aviles' name, was a stand-up and a good friend of my buddy's. He got a lot of play off of that, as a matter of fact, and I met him on more than one occasion.
Excellent.
As always, there's a Jim Melody connection. This is like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Bob, before we get any further into my unending anecdotes, we want to ask everybody, if they could, there's a lot of questions, needless to say, about the construction of the new Chapman School that's going on, and as a result, the great folks here at the TV station have decided to have a dedicated episode to the construction of the Chapman School, and we want to encourage people, anyone who has questions regarding what's going on with that development project, to send questions to AskMayorBob@gmail.com. There'll be a Chapman-centered episode of Ask the Mayor, which Ted will, from what I understand, will be taking my spot, and you guys will have a great time.
I think there'll be probably a lot. I'm assuming there'll be a lot of WETC coverage of everything relating to the Chapman issue. But I think what you're talking about is they want to do one separate
Chapman
kind
focused
of Ask the Mayor that's all Chapman questions.
Excellent. I'm sure there's a lot of
I think
questions.
I think it should be called a development update, since we're focusing on one subject. So we haven't determined what we're calling it, but it'll be about Chapman.
Well,
and we have a lot of questions because we skipped a taping, I think, when we had a lot going on in November, was it? And then we did the 2 tapings at the Senior Center before that live audience thing that was pretty good.
Which was phenomenal.
I was not responsible for the campaign buttons, but as a result, as a result of a higher volume than usual of questions and that delay, we do have a lot. So let's get to it.
Okay, here we go. But of course, another Melody delay. The million-dollar question everybody's asked since that Whipple Center appearance is, have you selected a bachelorette? Are you currently dating?
Let's go.
People passing on that one.
Mayor Headland, I'm Judy Briggs. I have a personal question.
No, I'm busy Saturday night.
He's single. Okay, I'm going to take off this hat then and get right into the traditional Ask the Mayor mode. And Bob, we're going to start off with a question from Chris Potter, who says he's got a question for the show. Good evening. I recently called DPW about a privately owned tree that was dead or dying, hanging low over Pearl Street and being hit by passing trucks. I started thinking after I made the call, which leads to my question, is there a program in place where the tree warden periodically checks for dangerous public or privately owned trees that hang over public ways? I drive around town and see an awful lot of privately owned trees, in particular, that are diseased or already dead in this same area. National Grid has pruned many of these tree limbs from their wires, but there still leaves the rest of these dangerous limbs hanging over the streets and sidewalks. You occasionally hear stories of news of trees falling onto cars for folks driving under these trees. In some cases, they have been fatal. It would be a shame to see something tragic like this happen in Weymouth, especially if it could be prevented, from our friend Chris Potter. It's a great question.
The rare instance where we can get an answer in that's shorter than the question. Well, I'm not sure if we even have a tree warden. We have an arborist who doubles as DPW foreman. We don't have the luxury of some other communities that have a much bigger DPW staff.
Well, this dedicated, other towns have dedicated people in this category?
Yes. Some places even have kind of a separate tree and park department. Hingham recently consolidated theirs, but we will evaluate, yes, they will do that if someone calls in. What we won't do is tree removal on someone's private property. Oftentimes the trees that are hanging over into the roadway are in our right of way where the tree is growing from, so we will address that. But we just had an instance where someone was very unhappy with me because we wouldn't send a crew out to her backyard to take down a damaged tree that was on private property. I mean, obviously we won't do that. So if a call comes in, yes, they do evaluate it in answer to his question, and we'll address it if it's a safety hazard and it's town-owned tree.
I think it's certainly topical. We see this in the news, it seems, all the time these days, these trees falling. But even if
There's
it's
exceptions to that, Jim, I might
Okay,
add, too.
yeah, please.
We've had instances where private tree will come down in a storm, block a road. Yes, obviously we address that.
Right.
So that there's some gray area to that.
You may recall, but remember last January I sent you this, I think it was off of Front Street, there were 2 trees that were used. I sent you a photo of them. They can be darn scary, that's for sure. So it's good to know someone's kind of keeping an eye on that. All right, Bob, this one is related to traffic lights at East and Green Street from Russ Drysdale. Approximately 2 years ago, your administration had a measure approved by the town council for a complete replacement of the traffic lights at the intersections of East and Green Street. What is the status of this project? P.S. Notice that these lights and many others in town are getting a new coat of paint, black instead of fading yellow, which is definitely an improvement on the aesthetics around town. So what's going on there? Are we repainting all the lights these days? And what's going on with the one at East and Green Street?
A number of our traffic signals were in need of paint. The DPW director contacted me, said, we have to schedule some time for a painter to address that. Do I have a preference on color? And I said, I absolutely do. And I was ecstatic that he called me. And I think that the black, I agree with the letter writer that the black is more aesthetically pleasing. And I believe the gentleman who wrote the letter lives in the vicinity of East, thus his question.
Sure.
He's very observant. Yes, in 2016, just after we became mayor, one of the capital projects that we approved that year, and there were many, as you know, was one that was rated as a high priority by Department of Public Works. And that was to replace the signalization at Green and East. It's got a very, very outdated controller and a very outdated system, and that one often fails. So we did approve that, and it's frustrating for me to drive by and see now, 2 years later, that after we appropriated and the council approved the appropriation in 2016, that it's not done. And it has become kind of a joke with the planning department as to why it's not done. A couple of things. We in this town have, when I arrived here, we had a part-time traffic engineer. We don't have a highway superintendent. And he was part-time. And a community this large, I would say that person was somewhat overtaxed. So the appropriation was there, but the engineering work and to facilitate the contract, he had a lot on his desk. We've actually extended his hours because we have so many projects ongoing that are related to his position. And that particular one, there were a couple glitches along the way, but it is on the radar screen. I'm hopeful that we get it done before I leave my term in office, or at least the first term in office. We'd like to get that done. Fortunate that since the appropriation was made, we haven't had any, I don't think there's been any major breakdowns of that thing, but in the past there's been a lot. So expect to see some action on that soon. I would note that the override request of 2015, one of the positions that would have funded was actually a highway superintendent in this town. So we try to get by with kind of a thin staff when it comes to overseeing all things traffic department, traffic related, and it often intersects with DPW and planning on these projects. And as you know, we've had a whole bunch of traffic signalization upgrades in this town. So he was very busy. We did, the state did it primarily, but he had a hand in what went on at Mutton and Washington and Pleasant, Libby. There's another one at the other end of Libby that's underway. There's the Green Street one. There's been a whole series. And then the Safe Streets grant we got which had a whole bunch of projects related to that, the crosswalk signalization, stuff like that. So he's been very busy, but I want to see that thing done. The money's appropriated. It's actually, I think, in the contract, I think is about to go out. So there was, I think, some issues in getting the specifications out on the street for the bid.
This may be an ATM first, Bob, an historical moment for us all to enjoy. I actually know the exact location of where we're talking about on East and Green Street. And I have a question for you as a follow-up. That seems to me, every time I come down that intersection, not overly necessary. Like stop signs might work there. Is that ever, do they consider that when they take a look at those type of intersections? I know you know exactly what I mean.
You know, that was, somebody asked that question on that intersection, I think, at one time. Maybe it was you. And I forget what the explanation was at the time, but no, I mean, those lights have been there forever.
No, definitely. I know since we were kids.
I think one of the, you got a blind spot on one of the corners there, I think might be a big issue.
Is that what it is?
I think.
All right, well, there you go. Well, we're moving forward then.
I'm not sure, I mean, I'm not a proponent for more lights or more stop signs if they're not needed, but I can't see, especially with habits having been derived there for decades, it'd revert back to a stop sign there.
Right. Different note. The fire hydrant in front of my house about 2 or 3 years ago the paint was fading. I painted it myself. I thought I'd just be a good citizen.
Community spirit, I love it.
Within a week, they came down and repainted it. I chose the color. I made it red because I thought it would be cool. And they came back and repainted the fire hydrant.
You can't do that.
Well, it was left alone for weeks, years, literally, as soon as I touched it up. So if you see me walking around town with a can of spray paint, you'll know I'm on the job. All right, Robert, this one is regarding...
I suggest the next time you get some free time, I'd work on your lawn rather than paint the town fire hydrant, from what I've seen.
Hey now. I take the fifth. All right, listen, Bob, this one is related to the South Weymouth Urgent Care, which I imagine it's that new building that opened up right on Route 18. Mayor Hedlund...
You would imagine correctly.
Okay, excellent. This is from Catherine O'Brien. Mayor Hedlund, I would like to rescind my critique of the Urgent Care Center of the previous email. Oh, this is lovely. When I saw it, it had a layer of green. I now realize it was unfinished. Seeing the finished product, I agree with you that it's a big improvement to that location. Mea culpa, Mayor Hedlund.
Got to give someone credit when they admit they're,
It's
I won't say
phenomenal.
wrong in this case, but...
An amended perspective. Also, there's a sign on Central Street that says radar control. It has been there for at least 40 years. Maybe it was because the base was nearby. Thought you might like to know. Keep up the good work. I love Jim's laugh. This is just positivity. This show is exuding good things out here. It's good vibrations today, Bob. On the first
I appreciate the comment. I do remember the question, and it's interesting because I saw some critique of a project that's going on in the landing, interestingly enough, made me think of this. The Kiley project on Front Street, somebody was upset that it doesn't look like what was permitted. The thing's only framed. It's not finished. So I don't know, sometimes people, another example would be the Union Towers rehab work that's going on.
Sure, right down the road.
They put a undercoat on the exterior. It was a waterproofing, you know that world. It was a waterproofing product that they put on, and everyone took to social media flipping out how ugly it looks, who decided they're going to paint it yellow, and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. It's like they're working on it. The staging is still up, Hold your fire a little bit and step back and do an evaluation like when it's done. But that's the immediacy of social media.
Call me.
That's the immediacy of social media. So anyway.
Holy smokes. We live in a reactive society. I hope you don't choose to not react to a lot of these comments. Okay, here we go. Bob, we're going to keep moving on. As you said, we've got all kinds of questions here. This one's from Mary Gifford. Why is it I pay close to $5,000 a year in taxes and my street and never seen, why is it that I pay close to $5,000 a year in taxes and my street never seems to get plowed? Maybe every so often someone will drive through, but I'm a 62-year-old woman living alone and I must get to work. Unfortunately, in the winter, due to plowing, I have to stay home, which means no paycheck, not to mention emergency vehicles trying to get in there. Thank you, Mary Gifford on 18 Gifford Way, P.S. Imagine she's got a history to this town.
Now, I don't see the questions.
Okay, no, you do
I have not seen the questions for this episode, except this one. Mary showed me this one. because weren't there multiple?
Yeah, Mary
emails
sent
from
in,
her?
she must have sent in between shows. So Mary, apologize for the delay.
But you need to read the previous one.
Well, there's a series of them here. Do you want me to start at the bottom?
There was one in particular, something about the snow this year.
Well, I'm just in no
That was
particular
one that was
order here.
brought to my attention.
I'm looking at why is it I pay close to $5,000 in taxes, but yet my street is seldom plowed?
It's further down.
All right. Still waiting for reply. First snow already fell and not plowed already, and nor
That's the
plowed
one.
already started. Okay, that's probably where this started.
So I'm not sure what storm they were referring to this year that occurred.
On November 17th.
You know what's going to happen? We just jinxed ourselves because this is taped. So when this airs, there's probably going to be a blizzard.
A little snow flurry today, in fact.
But we haven't really expended much of our snow plowing budget and salting budget this year because we haven't really had any snow. So I don't know what storm that she cites this year. We had a little flutter in November, but I didn't think it created hardship for people.
She may have been anticipating the upcoming season. You know, this certainly
She talks
seems early.
about one that already occurred. But anyway,
Okay.
Everybody has a critique, and they always say, my town is the worst plowed town, and they always say, my street's the worst plowed street in the town. I get that. But overall, I mean, if you have I would just encourage people, you can call our office, you can call the DPW hotline when there's a storm if you think that the plowing is insufficient in your neighborhood. And I have taken to a number of storms over the last couple of years to actually go over to DPW because Town Hall in a major storm is shut, and I go over to DPW and I answer the phone myself. And I hear firsthand the calls that come in. Some are rational and check out. In fact, a vendor that we might use, a contractor that might use, might have been unfamiliar with that neighborhood and missed something. It does happen. It doesn't happen that often. And then some of the calls sometimes are kind of outrageous. Like, you're 3 inches off the curb, why didn't you get closer? You know, things like that. So, but everyone has a critique when it comes to snow plowing, that's for sure.
Jeez. If I recall,
I'm mad on my street. They seem to hit the curb on the other side, but they, don't get near the curb on my side. And it's a continual thing.
if I remember correctly, Bob, on your first year, the first snowstorm, weren't you riding around in the trucks literally to make sure the roads were plowed?
I went out with the director. So what happens is we have supervisors that respond to the calls that come in to check on the vendors and to check on town staff that are plowing. So I got a firsthand look a number of times. And again, some checked out and some, I didn't understand what the complaint was.
It's a big town. It must take a while to do it all.
The calls come in and we check them.
Well, let's keep moving forward,
Or they
Bob.
check them,
She said,
DPW.
this one is a whole different topic matter. It's regarding security from Irving Merstein. Irving writes in, your views on security cameras on all public buildings and having police look at buildings during patrol tours and lock all... That's not really a sentence here. Your views on security cameras on all public buildings and having police look at buildings during patrol tours and lock all doors in mailrooms.
Yes. So, yeah, no.
And two, just for the, why can't we have trash recycling bins at DPW building open later evening and weekends? So the first one, I'm not sure what he's referring to here as far as your views on
I get
security.
the question.
Well, what are your views on security cameras?
We like them. They've proved helpful in many instances. They're on a number of buildings and they're not on some buildings. And the challenge we have is some areas that the fiber optic network doesn't accommodate it, and it's an ongoing process to upgrade that to places that we would like to get more security cameras in. That's the answer on that. Patrols, I believe it is a practice employed by the police department that they do the checks on buildings. I wonder about that. It's not, we moved away from, the cop on the beat, walking through the town squares and checking the doors and all that. I remember when you used to see that, but that is done to a degree still. And then the third part of that question was what?
Regarding trash recycling, why aren't there any trash recycling buildings at the DPW? Or why aren't they open later in the evenings and into weekends?
They get kind of overwhelmed down there with the whole recycling thing, and they do a pretty good job of monitoring because we do get a lot of out-of-towners that try to use our facility and dump TVs. Oh, no kidding. And it's very expensive. It's a huge hit to our trash budget. And by the way, the trash fee that you pay on your water bill when your water bill comes, right? It's with the water bill. It's like, yeah. That only covers about a third of our overall. The revenue from the trash fee only covers about a third of our overall solid waste disposal costs. We're getting killed on recycling, and we get killed on the white goods that come in and the electronics that come in. So they try to monitor that. And by the way, that is one area where we have cameras, so when people come in after hours and try to dump a TV there, you know, they're going to see it. But that's why. It's cost. We need to monitor what comes in, and it's an expense in doing that monitoring, and to pay someone after hours to do it would be a significant expense.
Well, we're cruising real fast through this episode, Bob. We want to remind everybody, as always, please keep these tremendous questions coming to Ask the Mayor.
askmayorbob@gmail.com.
By the way, due to citizen inquiry, we have tweaked, you know, the compost facility hours. We've changed that up since I came in as mayor. So and we run the, you know, recycling take back, hazardous waste take backs as frequently as we can. So we try to respond when we do get input like this, and we've done so.
And we do want to remind everybody about that special Chapman-focused episode of Ask the Mayor, please. So keep those questions coming into askthemayor@gmail.com.
askmayorbob@gmail.com.
As well, any questions you may have about the development of the Chapman School project. Bob, again, we're going to keep firing through these questions. This one comes from John Childs regarding the King Oak Hill Park idea.
A prolific runner, John Childs.
Dear Jim,
I think.
This is a two-parter, Bob. Dear Jim, thanks for showing up most of the time. I enjoyed the show. Thank you, John. And now to the Mayor Hedlund question. Mayor Hedlund, now the King Oak Hill Park is complete, I'm curious to learn if there are any plans for community events there in the coming year. I propose a summer evening concert series featuring smaller acts which would fit in with the area. The series could be funded by small community arts grants, and attendees could be asked to make a donation. A food vendor or local organization could sell hot dogs or burgers. Each concert could benefit a different Weymouth-based charitable organization in some way through a raffle or other means. This could even support town-funded events such as fireworks. Thanks for the improvements throughout the town. John Childs from Old Colony Running Events, as you did reference John. And clearly, he must be referring to a certain talented performer that could be playing up there in the summertime.
Send the word over there.
I think he was referring to a certain talented citizen inquisitor who sometimes makes the show when he doesn't forget. I mean, stuck in traffic. Oh, I'm sorry, stuck in traffic. So anyway.
What do you think about events there this summer?
Well, obviously, the construction of the park was done with an eye towards doing what he suggests.
Excellent.
It's really the only major structure we have that would accommodate that with the, I don't want to call it a pergola, what am I calling it?
Gazebo?
Gazebo.
Uh-huh.
It's not really a gazebo.
We're back.
Gazebo's not the word I want. Gazebo's not the word I want. What is that stupid thing?
There's no staging area or stage area up there per se.
Yes, it's a beautiful, yeah. So anyway, it was done with an eye towards doing that. Any group can get a permit to use it through the recreation department like you would any other town recreation facility. There'll probably be some programming up there by different town departments and then private functions that it can be used for. And you'll see some further changes coming with, obviously when a conclusion is reached with the future of the house. We do have the carriage house in the garage. The carriage house could be set up, to support functions, whether it be kitchen facility, things like that. So there's more and better things coming to that site. But in the meanwhile, it's a nice, beautiful passive recreation site that's beautiful and can be used for the things that he's talking about, as long as it's not too intrusive upon the neighborhood.
Is there enough parking up there, Bob, for
Plenty.
big events? Plenty.
And then Jim, you can get a little exercise, and you can walk over from Legion too.
Would they mind if I rode my golf cart up there?
No.
Hey, we're getting close to the end of another exciting episode of Ask the Mayor. It's been action-packed. We want to remind everybody to keep the questions coming in to askthemayor@gmail.com.
askmayorbob@gmail.com.
Bob, we're going to keep firing away until they tell us we can't. This one is from Amy Perriello. Would you consider a town-wide reduction of the speed limit to 25 miles per hour unless posted otherwise? Boston, Cambridge, and Braintree have all done so in the interest of public safety. What do you think about a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in this town?
We haven't really discussed it. I know Braintree did that, and kind of watching how that worked out for them. You probably have some naysayers, probably some people like Amy that would welcome it. What we have done instead, obviously, as a community, is targeted areas for a reduction in the minimum speed limit here in town. A good example of that would be Green Street, which has a lower than 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and there's other streets like that. So that's been the approach that Weymouth has taken. I haven't heard, an outcry from people who would like to see a town-wide reduction. It hasn't happened. If we were going to pursue that, obviously it would be studied by our traffic engineer, who we've discussed earlier in the show, and that'll push back the Green Street project even further, Russ. And it would be vetted by the appropriate committee, Public Safety Committee, and the Ordinance Committee of the Town Council. So there'd be a long process involved in that, but again, we got a lot on our plate. That hasn't been something that has been brought to my attention by residents, really. This is maybe the one example of that.
Well, the first question that comes to mind, is there a need for it? When's the last recorded episode of someone being hit, by a vehicle on the road?
Last week?
Oh, seriously? Oh, does it happen all the time? And of course, the Weymouth
There's
officer.
way too many pedestrian accidents. That case, allegedly, the victim was at fault. He wandered into Route 18 traffic in darkness with a night of precipitation, I think it was. I could be wrong, but...
But it happens more often than you think.
Yeah, but I mean, and enforcement's a big part of this. I mean, how many people are obeying 30 miles an hour, never mind if we lowered it to 20?
Getting back to those new signs that you guys put up there, phenomenal. The ones that, I forget what the
Some
language
people
is
pay
on
heed
it.
to them, and it is helpful.
Yeah, it's a
think
great reminder.
You're one of them.
It's a friendly reminder. I mean, it's a nice little kick in the pants when you're going faster than you might not suspect. Do we have enough time?
Yes,
for
we
one more
do. Let's
question
go.
here, guys?
Let's
Here
go.
we go.
Come
We're
on.
going 2 minutes. Jeff Cummings is telling us. By the way, if you don't know Jeff Cummings, is the guy who
go.
does all the graphics. He's phenomenal.
Let's go. We'll introduce him
promoting
later.
our buddy.
You got 120 seconds
All right, shell
left.
fishing in Weymouth from Andrew
You're
Carvalho.
not here to promote WETC. You're promote the citizens that have questions.
First reference in 50 shows, Jeff, and you can't get a break. Mayor Bob.
No, somebody called him a clown or something on a previous show. Remember?
Oh, hey now. No, that's the one I skipped. Mayor Bob, I am a Weymouth resident who has bought a permit and shellfish down in Duxbury for the past few years. I've seen oysters and other shellfish in the back river during hikes and walks at Esker Park. Currently, the river is zoned as restricted by the Division of Marine Fisheries. I would love to someday shellfish in Weymouth. Is there any work being done to improve the cleanliness of the area? And do you think there will be shellfishing in Weymouth in our lifetime? And I'm jumping in. We used to do it down by Weymouth Port all the time. My father and I used to go down there digging clams
Just going
all
to
the
say,
time.
I remember we had early in my time in office when we had. I want to say one of the state officials came down when we announced that the flats were being opened back up down at the area you're talking about by Weymouth Neck.
Okay.
So there's been times when the water quality the state has allowed that, and this is regulated by the state, I might add.
Okay.
So I can't answer his question specifically when, but in terms of what's being done, I mean, the town of Weymouth has made incredible strides over the last 25 plus years in reducing non-point source infiltration, sewage leakage. The town's infrastructure has been upgraded, phasing out septic systems and cesspools. We got a number of state grants in the 90s to clean up infiltration and fixing the infrastructure that was creating sewage infiltration in the back river. Which would affect that area that he talks about. And of course, while all that's happening, and addressing our catch basins too, I might add, and while all that's happening, the work that was done, obviously at the state level, which we are all still paying for with our MWRA rates to clean up Boston Harbor. So there's been great strides made. And I'd have to give a shout out to some of the local groups that were involved in securing some of those grants, if memory serves me correct, and advocating for some of this work, like the Fall River Watershed Protection Association, like the Back River Watershed Association. I think it was the old name. They changed the name, but it used to be the Webb Park, Abigail Adams, Back River Committee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've gone the right direction in the last
Excellent.
25, 30 years on that issue.
It's an awesome thing.
So
coming soon, hopefully, or
well,
coming,
I
going
mean,
in
it's
the right
been
direction.
intermittent, and a lot of it has to do, Duxbury, you got open ocean, where you get, the tides are in and out. We're in a protected bay where there isn't much of a, flushing dynamic with the coastline there.
So, Andrew, you're driving to Duxbury for the foreseeable future, it looks like. Well, listen, we're going to wrap this episode up. I've asked the mayor. Any parting thoughts or words, Bob, for our viewing public?
Nope. Thank the chief of staff for loaning us his
Thank you, Ted.
JFK bust.
Ted Kennedy. And we want to remind everybody to stay tuned for F Troop. We just lost Ken Berry a couple
Can you
weeks
catch
ago.
that? I'm getting signals here, and I don't know what they mean.
I'm telling you to choose a song
Choose a song.
for the outro.
It's a TV show.
It's a TV show. Yeah.
I said F Troop.
We're up to 55 episodes, and you still don't know what we do to close.
All right, stay tuned.
Yes, F Troop, because Forrest Parmenter just died not too long
It
ago.
was
so
Ken
we have to do
Berry.
it.
Thank you. Repeat and repeat.
Yes. He played Forrest Parmenter.
That's why we get along.
All right.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.
Pleased and thrilled his proud little family group. While pinning it on, some blood was spilled, and so it was planned he'd command F Troop.